Welcome to this week's PromoChat Deep Dive. This week, we're very excited to have a longtime PromoChat participant, Josh Carter from LOCK Promo. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, so you are a constant and regular participant, and your content is always great. And this week, you basically shouted something in one of your tweets that were like, okay, yeah, no, this is what we want to talk about here. So what we were talking about was trends and sort of the future of promo and how do you keep up, how do you engage, and how do you do everything. And so our question was, none of us want to look like Steve Buscemi carrying a skateboard. Being on trend is critical when building a hip, new, experiential promotional campaign. How do you stay up to date on what them youngsters on your lawn are into, and how do you translate that into success? Josh was very proud of this tweet. And your response was, hire them, big caps, hire them and have them influence your social media. Pay attention to your nieces, nephews, kids, friends, etc. It's easy to get left behind, especially with how quickly memes and GIFs change so frequently. Okay, it's a big topic of like how you stay up to date. So give us your tips. Like, how do you make sure you're not being left behind or totally misunderstanding or, you know, doing something that's, you know, marks you as the old generation on the internet.
Right. Yeah, and that can be really hard sometimes. I mean, I've got you know, friends who have kids, and it seems like they're leaps and bounds, light years ahead of me as far as what's hip and what's cool, what everyone's kind of paying attention to. And that's really, like I said in the tweet, that's what you kind of have to pay attention to, are the young generations. You have to, you know, I say hire them in there, but obviously we're not going to be hiring 13-year-olds. But those are a lot of the people that are going to be coming up eventually, and they're the ones that are staying hip and on trend. So if you pay attention to those young minds and kind of what they're doing, it should give you a little bit of insight into what's coming around the corner in the next, you know, 10 years as far as what's going to be, you know, more sellable, I guess, in the market.
Yeah.
You know, so if you pay attention to that, it doesn't have to be your nieces and nephews. You can just join some groups on Facebook and Twitter and follow the hashtags, and, you know, because there's a lot of information on there too.
Yeah, and it's one of those things is like there's so much out there on where, like, I swear, I think I'm old and I'm like over 30, and it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, what is TikTok? And can I have someone explain TikTok to me? And should I be on TikTok? And then there's other people who are way older or younger being like, what's Twitter? Explain Twitter to me. Should I be on Twitter? And so how do you gauge where you should be? Like, is it something, are you responding to your clients in this case, or is this something where you just want to be ahead of the curve, or what's something for you to sort of look out for?
So on our, we've got a few people on our sales staff, and a few of them are kind of that younger generation. So it's a little bit easier for them to kind of stay up to date on things and kind of convey to me, running our work in web, kind of what we're looking for. If something just looks a little bit bland, or, yeah, we don't use that meme format anymore. Like, oh, okay, sorry. Wait, I thought we were just using that.
When did we stop?
Yeah, that was only 4 months ago. I saw that one and said, yeah, no, that one's tired now. Yeah. So, so it's a benefit to have those people on staff that can kind of help convey to the rest of us what's hip and trendy and everything. And even if I don't even know if the kids are using those words anymore as far as what's cool, you know. So that's how quickly it changes, and that's part of the problem with staying up to date is how you're doing that research, and like you said, where are you going to exist? Is it just on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Are people even using those platforms anymore? And then how? You can interact a lot more with people on different platforms, and I feel like you kind of have to play around with it a little bit to figure out what's going to work best for your company. And it may end up being Instagram. It may end up just being LinkedIn that works out for you guys. You know, you got to kind of try to play around with it for yourself.
Yeah, because I always find with things like this is that you're kind of stuck between where you want your clients to be, like where you want to be for future client things, and then where your clients are, where it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I can be on Instagram and Snapchat and be all over like the different memes, but if my client base is older and not understanding it or doesn't care about it, how do you gauge on what what will work for you, or like how do you look at the trends and really combine them into like LOCK's ethos and like your purpose and your own branding there? Like how do you work to combine those?
Well, like I said, there's a few people on our sales staff that really help out in that way. Paying attention to trends, we've noticed the past probably year or so, kind of what has been working as far as running ads, and we try to pay attention to what those trends are, but we also try to be a little bit progressive at the same time. So there might be something that we will use for a year or something, then see how it does at the end of the year when it's getting closer to like fourth quarter or something, and then we'll think about, okay, do we want to stay on this road, or do we want to maybe try something else and see if that works better, or doesn't work at all, and then we'll change something else out after that. The good thing is, I think a lot of the times we've got more time than we think we do to make an adjustment. As we're going down the road, oh, this isn't working. Okay, let's make an adjustment real quick here. Let's have a meeting and talk about maybe it wasn't delivered just the right way, and maybe we just tweak a couple of things, and then.
So can you give an example of something that worked really well for you that you found had legs? Or can you give an example of something that you thought, man, I thought this would really work. Like, I wonder why it didn't work. Like, can you share an example of that? Or
there's a couple of, so we do a lot of our ads on Facebook, more so than Instagram and Twitter. We'll post some of our promotions on all three of those platforms, but we really spend the ad money on Facebook. And there's been a couple of times where we'll put something up and it's the right time of year for it, back to school or something like that, and it'll be a backpack, and it completely doesn't work at all. But then other times it'll be, just a couple months ago, I think we did some sunglasses, and we got all sorts of hits on it. And it was just, of course, sunglasses for summer and everything, but you'd think backpacks or bags or water bottles, mugs would be something for the fall seasons when they're coming up. But sometimes it just doesn't work, and you're not really sure why. Maybe it was the verbiage that was used. Maybe it was the design elements. Maybe on Facebook you've got the audience that you can look at. Maybe that wasn't specified well enough, and so you have to try to keep paying attention. And maybe if you use the same audience over and over again, that's not going to be the right approach depending on what product you're trying to promote.
So you're constantly tweaking and looking, and the same thing with well, maybe this message might not work, or maybe I got it wrong. Maybe my 13-year-old neighbor just lied to me about this.
Right. Right. That could have been
it. They're sneaky.
Yeah. They're using a different form of sarcasm anymore, and it's
You didn't tell us.
Oh yeah, that's totally cool. You should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you heard, oh, it's totally cool. We should do that, and they said, oh, it's totally cool. You should do that.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, so what tip would you have for someone in trying to experiment? Like someone who's I'm really not sure this would work. Is there one aspect that you've taken in your ads, or is it the tone of the ad, the image? What do you think is a strength on what you do that people could kind of work with?
Well, I think it might relate back to one of the other tweets that I made with that conversation, was that in the general topic of the PromoChat was Generation Z and millennials, and coming up into the market as consumers. And I think one of the other things that I think I mentioned, but I think I saw a few other people say, was that Generation Z, they have a thing with authenticity. They don't want to feel like they're being sold a bill of goods, kind of a thing. And this is what I feel like has come up quite a few times on PromoChat, is the idea of being authentic and not coming off like a car salesman. So I think if that's where you start, especially with the new generations coming up that are looking for such authenticity. If you start there, everything else is just going to come a lot easier, because you don't have to force it anymore. And then so you just kind of try a couple things here. If that doesn't work, at least you're being honest about it. If you do a video ad or something like that, keep some of the mistakes in the video.
Yeah.
And then put it maybe at the very end of the video or something like that, because it adds that authenticity that this isn't some super cut and dry ad. This is something that we were laughing about this behind the scenes too. We think you guys would enjoy this, and so it adds a familiarity, a personability to it that people will kind of, I feel like, start to relate to a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it goes into like getting the voice right. So many times is like now the thing is like make sure it's your voice that's speaking out there, that you have, that it's not sort of like, and we are a brand. It's like, we're a brand.
Right.
This is what we do.
Yeah. Right. And I see a lot of new companies come up, and sometimes it's hard to see, kind of track with them and see how long they end up staying on the scene. But I know a lot of the ones that I kind of automatically feel more comfortable listening to their ad or watching their ad are the ones that, I mean, they feel authentic, but they also feel like they're not overtly in your face about it. And that's what we try to kind of do with our ads, is bring more of a personal feel to it, where we're not trying to sell you something. We're just trying to say, hey, it's about to be summer. You might need some new sunglasses, or you and your group, it'd be kind of a cool thing if you and your group had some new sunglasses. We can do this, but we also have a bunch of other options too. So let's work together and figure out what you guys want to do, rather than, hey, buy our stuff. It's not, you don't need to do that.
Well, it's what you've talked about before about like being a partner versus being a salesperson, is like here and you're solution selling instead of product selling, and that if you find that authentic voice, then people do believe like you want to help them rather than like what's in it for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Josh, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for finally joining us on the deep dive. Thank you to our sponsors, Maple Ridge Farms. And remember, everyone, join us every Wednesday on Twitter, noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern time. And thank you again, Josh.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Our pleasure. Take care.